Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. A couple of announcements for today. I've started writing for Last Word on Sports, so please make sure to check out my articles. I believe you can get to it just by typing into your search engine LWO Sports, and then just my name after that, Gabe Vaughn. Press the return key, and it should get you there. I've only written one so far, but there are more coming, so please keep up with that. Once again, that's LWO Sports, Gabe Vaughn. That's what I think is the quickest path to getting to my pages. The other thing, please make sure to join my new Giants Baseball 101 Facebook group. That's just Giants Baseball 101. I made it public, so it should be open to anyone, and you can let me know if you've got any issues with that, but please make sure to join the Giants Baseball 101 Facebook group. And with that, we'll get started. The Giants, it seems, just cannot contend for the postseason and develop young players simultaneously. It's just not the way it's been able to happen in recent years, and in 2023, as far as right now, it's not looking too much better. Couple of veteran players are departing, and it's not that we really need to miss them that much as far as what we would expect their performance to be. It's just that they're not really being replaced in a way that's like overly promising, or at least a way that's going to give us a whole lot of confidence. Now we contrast the Giants situation with the situation in another popular sport, the 49ers in football. Their quarterback, Brock Purdy, is the guy everyone's talking about. And he's going to be their guy, I'm pretty sure, for years to come. He's getting a whole ton of attention right now. He's going to be their guy for a long time to come. But they've got an immediate goal in mind, too, and that's to win the Super Bowl this year. By the way, the position the 49ers are in, according to my understanding, it would be a huge tragedy indeed in the minds of Niners fans if they didn't win the Super Bowl, or at least get there. So we're going to have to see what they do. It would be at least as huge of a tragedy as it was for the Giants losing the division series to the Dodgers in 2021. We'll remember that. That was terrible. Same thing in football here for the 49ers. They're going for it this year in the playoffs, and their fans, I'm pretty confident that right now, even with my limited football knowledge, I think their fans are really expecting something, and they're going to consider it a tragedy if they don't at least make it to the Super Bowl. So Brock Purdy is their prospect who's establishing himself right now in the postseason for the 49ers and helping them win games immediately. That's how the Niners are doing it, and they seem to be a very happy team right now with no real issues. But going back to baseball, the Giants, it's just messed up for them. Can't seem to do both, develop young players and get to the postseason in 2023 with the results of this offseason. It just doesn't look too great. But the good news, and I've mentioned this before, is that we saw a rally in 2019 and 2020 by the Giants mid-season. Both seasons they weren't expected to contend at the outset, but they made some mistakes late in the season. Those are the similarities. 2020 really came closer. Being a shortened season and all, it came closer to getting the Giants a playoff spot with the playoffs expanded and all that. But 2023, I've mentioned before, we got to hope for something like that again. And on the moves that they've really made, they're probably, the recent moves are probably the best given the options that they really have as far as free agency goes. And Evan Longoria's departure, he's likely to be filled in by David Villar. I read the article on their official website where Maria Gordado predicts the opening day roster, so that's where I obtained my information. Evan Longoria has signed at this point a one-year deal with the Diamondbacks, and David Villar is likely to replace him at third base. That is the right call for the Giants to get Villar some at-bats. Again, ideally they would have had more proven superstars on the roster, and you're probably thinking, well, I don't know how Villar is going to perform in 2023. Guess what? I don't either. it's a chance they're taking. It's a venture they're going out on. We have to see how he performs. He is probably organizationally their best option. And it's kind of left my mind right now exactly where JD Davis is. If he's, yeah, I'm going to have to check on the contract status of JD Davis. I apologize for not doing that before, but David Villar, he's the guy I heard is the kind of the biggest possibility to move in at third base. That's the right call right now. And Evan Longoria, the Giants could have re-signed him. I believe Villar is a better option. Farhan Zaidi said this is something he is technically right about, although Giants aren't going to end up doing it exactly the right way, but that they needed to get younger and more athletic. That is true. Longoria is nearing 40 years old, and he used to be a superstar, and maybe he'll be in the Hall of Fame, but he is past his prime at this point, so re-signing Longoria, no, I would much more be in favor of having Villar take over third base. There's so much uncertainty with him, but Longoria, all he will do from this point is age. So I am in complete favor. I was in complete favor of letting Longoria go, and I'm more in tune with the option of having Villar cover for him at third base. First base, what we're talking about next. The other departing free agent was first baseman Brandon Belt, who wasn't healthy for all of 2022. He's going now, and just to go back a bit, that's the other thing with Longoria. He might not always be healthy, and then, you could just call up Villar at that point. Might be better to just give Villar an extended taste of the big league. So instead of having Longoria there, where his health might be uncertain and all that, I would rather just have Villar there, give him an extended look in the big leagues, see what he does. And Brandon Belt at first base, I would think his health would be in some kind of question, although the Blue Jays, I'm not saying I know how he'll perform for them. He could be great. He signed with the Blue Jays. Whether the Giants should have made a huge effort to re-sign Belt, I don't think there's strong evidence that would suggest that. I don't have a convincing case they should have retained Belt at all costs. And Lamont Wade Jr., he's the guy, according to the article, that was expected to fill in for Brandon Belt at first base. Thing with Wade is he's a lot better against right-handed pitching than against left-handed pitching, so if he could have a platoon partner over there at first base, that would be ideal. Who would it be? I don't know as of right now. Off-season isn't over yet, and their trades can still be made and stuff, so I'm just giving possibilities. Ideally, Wade has a platoon partner, and in 2021, that was the thing the Giants were doing a lot. It was one of their, aside from having the veterans reestablish themselves, 2021 was a year in which they used the platoon strategy pretty effectively, and Wade's platoon partner was Darren Ruff, and they could both play first base. They could both play the outfield as well, so that's what they did. They both had pretty good seasons in 2021, with Wade taking responsibility against the righties, Ruff taking responsibility against the lefties. Ruff wasn't too good in 2022, and overall Wade wasn't either, but I did like the power burst I saw, like, shortly after the trade deadline for him, so, I mean, that's something to see, And Ruff, the Mets, I would have to check his stats with the Mets, but they had hopes for him, They actually wanted him to be a designated hitter when they traded for him, but anyway, Ruff and Wade were platoon partners in 2021, and someone else, Giants would have to get someone else if they were going to carry that out to team up with Lamont Wade in 2023 to try to maximize performance. Because if he could just face the righties, I think not only from just mathematically having his at-bats against pitchers he's naturally better against, but also maybe just the fact that he's able to focus on them. If they could do it that way, I think that would be most beneficial to Wade's performance. So that's the first base situation. Catching, they designated Austin Wynns for assignment. And when I heard that first, I thought that he, after not being great in 2022, I thought they were kind of done with him and that he was likely to spend a lot of the 2023 season in the minors. He had kind of had his chance and his time was over. Not what I've heard recently. The article I read about the Giants opening day roster predictions. I believe that was by Maria Guardado. At least she was making the predictions about the opening day roster. And it mentioned that Wins is expected to see a lot of time at catcher for the Giants in 2023. So, removing him from the 40-man roster, I can't remember exactly which player they were making room for, but I think that their expectation is that they will be bringing Wins back when they can do so. So, he's expected to see time. And they were considering Gary Sanchez, the free agent catcher. And interestingly, I just had to write a paper on him. It's a real long story. Not going to tell it all right now, but with the baseball class I was taking, I was doing my final paper. Those are always the real hard parts, and you're usually trying to meet a tight deadline. So I was just looking at the free agents. Who could I, write a report on my analysis of, and I looked at Gary Sanchez, and I thought he was kind of an interesting player. There were a lot of factors that needed to be considered. Had to be 6 pages long, so I needed some factors there, and so I picked Sanchez and wrote about him. I mentioned that the contract value I predicted for Sanchez when he finally got signed was 2 years, $7.5 million. But I also mentioned the threshold of belief in Sanchez, confidence he'd be good. The threshold's a bit lower for a team that's just desperate anyway. They might have to take a chance, and they might be willing to pay more. It depends on the situation. That's what I mentioned when I was writing my paper for class. And I'm kind of saying that now too. Sanchez, I would predict his contract value, maybe 2 years, $7.5 million. If you were a team like the Giants, though, the Giants are just kind of desperate to get someone who might be good. And if they wanted to take a chance on Sanchez to see if he'd rebound, even if he isn't the most promising free agent, and even if, honestly, they wanted to go to, say, 2 years, maybe 10, 11, or 12 million, or even 3 years and a bit more, maybe 15 million, a bit more than that. If the Giants wanted to do that because they were so desperate and they needed to take a chance, otherwise they knew they'd just get kicked down anyway, then that's where I could see jumping in and being a little competitive, signing Gary Sanchez. It seems like they're not going to do that, though, from what Farhan Zaidi said, according to, again, something reported on the Giants website, that he said they're not likely to add any more catchers at this point. I think that's just a positional roster thing. They realize they can fill the catching spot. I think it's just they don't believe that there's reason to expect Sanchez to provide a lot more value than what they would already have in terms of, well, likely it'll be 2 catchers that are on the roster. Some teams carry 3, and the Giants could do that. If they sign Sanchez, they could carry 3 catchers, but I think when teams do that, it's usually for like a short stint of time. Sometimes it's the postseason. Sometimes it's just a short stint of time in the regular season, but anyway, it's not looking like the Giants will be signing Sanchez. Whether that's good or bad, I can't say as of right now. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Again, please ask questions, leave comments if you have them. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.